Get some! Welcome one and all to the Young Turks with me, John Iadarola, stepping in for Anna Kasparian, and there's Cenk Uygur. In cosplay is Francesca Fiorentini. Francesca, how's it going?
Of course. Hi, John. Wow, suit and tie.
Just for you and the audience and the show.
I don't know.
And it's a contract.
Has this ever happened? Just you and me in control of the main show? Like,
I don't know that we've done
two renegades, just
young
running from
crazy
the law.
kids, making it up as we go along, spreading fake news. Not especially. No, we've done bits and pieces, but I don't know. Anyway, I like it. Let's make it a trend, everyone. Hashtag John and Fran forever. Let's do that. But anyway, I'm very excited to have you on the show, not only for this first hour, which I'm gonna be leading, but the second hour and the bonus episode, which you will be leading. And while we have a ton of interesting news, some VP stuff, Ticketmaster drums, what are you looking forward to in the second hour?
I don't know, an FBI was on a Russian oligarch's payroll, that's cool. Also, nothing, yeah. I'm looking forward to your hour a little bit more. My hour for some reason feels real serious, but no, we're gonna also look at what Iowa is doing to its public schools, and spoiler, it's bad. So
Yeah, when was the last time you heard good news having to do with public schools in America? Well, anyway, maybe we'll try to make it fun in a little way. We'll figure out a way to throw in the Greta voice or something. So anyway, don't worry, everyone. We're gonna make this fun. We're gonna make this approachable, but more importantly, we're gonna make it substantive, and hopefully we're all gonna learn something through the experience. But anyway, we look forward to your comments, of course, as always during our social breaks. But with all that said, Francesca, why don't we get this thing started?
Yeah.
Speaker Kevin McCarthy has booted 2 Democrats off of the House Intelligence Committee, and that might just be the beginning. Now, of course, if you've been following American politics, you know that he did this as like a stop to Fox News, to the Republican base. They want to see strike back because the Democrats had the temerity to throw Paul Gosar and Marjorie Greene off of their committees for encouraging violence against their colleagues, literally calling for the assassination of Nancy Pelosi, AOC, Joe Biden, a number of different people. In comparison to that, Swalwell and Schiff existed. They were, and thus they needed to be punished. Here's how Kevin McCarthy tried to provide cover for this purely partisan thing that he did. I have rejected the appointments of Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell for the House Intelligence Committee. I am committed to returning the House Intel Committee to one of genuine honesty and credibility that regains the trust of the American people. That is definitely his focus. I don't expect that you're gonna be able to read that full letter, especially on mobile. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit on one of my favorite excerpts. He says, I cannot put partisan loyalty ahead of national security, and I cannot simply recognize years of service as the sole criteria for membership on this essential committee. Integrity matters more, says the guy that put Marjorie Greene on Homeland Security. No, but like, look at that. So every single person knows exactly why he did this. And I mean both the people maybe on my side of the aisle that are against the move, as well as everyone on the right wing who is cheering this. They know why he did this. They wanted him to do this, and they're very happy that he did. The idea that he did it because he cannot put partisan loyalty ahead of national security is utterly ridiculous. Nobody actually believes that. Nobody on their side cares. They got what they wanted, Francesca, and isn't that nice for them?
Yeah, and it bodes terribly for this entire country. Look, and I'm not gonna say like, that Rep Swalwell and Adam Schiff were like, my heroes, but they did lead the country through impeachment hearings, right? Love them or hate them, believe they were necessary is what I did. I don't know why I'm speaking like Yoda, but I am. Look, the real thing is, yeah, let's just stick with this. The real thing is, it begins a snowball, right? And it happens in a lot of countries. In a lot of countries, the United States has turned its nose at, is like, their democracy is not quite perfect, unlike ours. But it's when your entire system, your legislative branch and your judicial branch are completely flooded with partisan picks. You go through political purges when your party is not in power, and you only appoint loyalists. Again, the lesson out of the Trump administration, I'm sure from Donald Trump himself and clearly from Kevin McCarthy, is we didn't have enough loyalists. Like, it wasn't that we attempted a coup on January 6th, it's that we didn't attempt it hard enough. It's that we had to go to the third rail, which is, send a bunch of radicalized Facebook dads at the Capitol instead of doing it through our bought and sold loyalist attorneys generals who are just randos, again, probably the same Facebook dads. You know what I'm saying? So this is, again, where the country is headed, and it all paves the way for a potentially successful parliamentary coup in the future.
Yeah, and it wasn't supposed to be like this. I think that the owner-donors would prefer a system that didn't have explicit violence in the streets. The way it was supposed to work was through a combination of structural factors, gerrymandering, the overrepresentation of small rural states and all of that, combined with endless fundraising for Fox News and independent right-wing media, focusing on an ever-changing menu of ridiculous culture war topics. That was supposed to be enough. They were supposed to win based on that. They were supposed to delude the rubes enough so that they would maintain power. And that in the end wasn't enough. Somehow the American people were able to see through a lot of this BS. And so instead they had to pull the coup card. And now we're all waiting to see if going back to business as was usual, the culture war, the demonizing trans people and trying to strip the rights away from everyone, if that works in 2024, then they'll just do that. And if it doesn't, they'll probably try again for a coup. And they've got more of a ground game for that now. Yeah. So obviously, with all of that being said, the bad guys thus are Schiff and Swalwell. And again, I'm not massive fans of Schiff and Swalwell. They're not my guys or anything. But let's be clear about what is going on. They got Liz Cheney'd. They got Adam Kinzinger or whatever. They're not being run out of Congress or anything, but they stuck their head up. And thus, as long as the fascists don't get back in power, then you'll probably be okay. But if they do, then you're going to be on the literal enemies list. And that's where they find themselves. Now, they have responded to this. Eric Swalwell says it's political vengeance. It's too bad because that committee has always been a bipartisan committee, and he's taking one of the most precious pieces of glassware in the congressional cabinet and smashing it, and the damage is going to be irreparable. Also pointed out, comparing what's happening here to what happened with Marjorie Greene being kicked off of her committees. If a Democrat advocated for violence against another member of Congress, I would support getting rid of them. I think this is a terrible move on his part, and once again, showing McCarthy just catering to the most extreme elements of this conference. I agree, we are always incredibly clear to the point of being Buzz Killingtons that political violence is not acceptable. I too would call for them to be taken off their committees if that was the case. We do have to be fair though. So to be clear, the issue here is that they're being taken off of the House Intelligence Committee. It is ridiculous that this is happening in comparison to what happened with Gosar and Green, which seems very necessary. But to be fair, at least, they're not being kicked off of all of their committees. They're just being kicked off of that committee. Schiff is gonna sit on the Judiciary Committee. Swalwell will join him there and also be on Homeland Security. So they are not being stripped of all of their committee assignments. They are being stripped of that committee assignment though. So I don't know, Francesca, like there might be some people maybe who superficially agree with us or largely agree with us on a lot of stuff that think, oh, well then, okay, I guess this is the way things are. And so when we take control back, then we're gonna take all of their, but I don't actually want that. I'm not interested in that. I didn't see Green and Gosar being rightly punished as the establishment of like, now we can round them all up. It was extreme times calling for extreme measures. I don't like the normalization of people being kicked off of their committees.
No, I guess not. I mean, I guess their constituents elected them, even if they are low key or high key white nationalists. Sure, they deserve representation. I'm just remembering Kathy Griffin, a not elected representative, posting with a photo of a severed Trump head early in the Trump years, and how, oh my God, I can't believe it, right? And can you imagine if a Democratic legislator had done that, if a Kathy Griffin were in office right now? I mean, that's effectively, if you were outraged about that, that's what they've done. They're like, okay, so Marjorie Greene can call for violence, can actually actively stalk a congressperson like she did to AOC, that Gosar can go speak at a white nationalist conference, then tweet out a video of AOC dying. And yeah, they get these committee positions. It's important to note, obviously, that Kevin McCarthy has control of the Intelligence Committee, but not all of the committees. But he's going to use that, where he can. And I agree with you, I guess in theory, John, that when our guys or like the not crazies get back into power, like I'd like to not do the exact same thing and do the political purges, except you kind of have to un-F the whole balance, right? I mean, this is, I think, why we're in the political situation we are in this country, which is that when Democrats come into power, they're so afraid of appearing partisan. They're so afraid of trying to, appeal to the center and be bipartisan, that they don't realize just how far right we've actually gone. So in order to un-F these committees, in order to un-F the entire system, you kind of do need to go through a certain amount of purge, right? You kind of, again, it's the ways that Kyrsten Sinema gets to still defend the filibuster when she knows it has only been used to drag this country farther and farther to the right, farther and farther into the hands of people with power and money, and farther away from working people's needs. Yeah. So I'm of two minds, because we don't exist in a vacuum.
I would say I think I'm of two minds, but in that I just think of those as being very different issues. Like when I say I don't want to come in and ban them all from the committees, it's not me thinking like, oh, well, I guess we won't because I want to appeal to people. No, I just genuinely don't want to do that. Like I actually have no interest in that. They should get the number of seats that they're supposed to have based on, their representation in Congress. And let Kevin McCarthy choose which chuckleheads he's gonna put on there or whatever. Now, if they do the sorts of things that Gosar and Green have done, if they are advocating for political violence and that sort of thing, then sure, I would ban them, and you could probably come up with other standards that I would have for that. But not simply they didn't like Biden or whatever, like that's not enough for me. Right. Whereas with the filibuster, that to me it was designed, it has functioned as a tool to stop the government from being able to actually work at a fundamental level. But anyway, interesting conversation. Perhaps we'll be able to get back around to it. I do want to move on to one other representative though. Representatives Swalwell and Schiff are off of the House Intelligence Committee. Well, what about Ilhan Omar? Representative Omar has been in the crosshairs, mostly figuratively, of the right for some time. And they would very much like to kick her off of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Here she is talking about the possibility of that happening.
Kevin McCarthy's purely partisan move to strip us from our committee is not only a political stunt, but also a blow to the integrity of our democratic institution and threat to our national security. We are thankful to Leader Jeffries and House Democrats, and even some courageous Republicans for standing with us.
So Ilhan Omar, I think Representative Omar should say, is right to point out that most of the Democrats seem to be on board. We're gonna have to see, and there are in fact some Republicans who have said they are not going to go forward with trying to strip her of her committee assignment. This is gonna be happening, by the way, next week possibly. Full House vote. Taking Representative Omar off of her panels will require a simple majority vote, but remember, the Republicans have a very narrow majority, and so you only need so many Republicans to cross over, assuming all the Democrats stay in line, for it to not work. So We have Victoria Spartz and Nancy Mace, Representative Spartz and Mace, saying they will not vote to take Representative Omar off of that committee. We also have lobbying going on behind the scenes for Representative Brian Fitzpatrick and Representatives Chris Smith. There are also a couple of representatives who said that they are undecided at this point. Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee and David Valadao of California. If they all signed on, or if 3 of the 4 of those, I think, sign on, then the vote would fail. And presumably McCarthy would know that ahead of time and thus wouldn't have the vote at all. That would be, I think, a great sign of at least a little bit of sanity in the House. But Francesca, any prediction 1 week out from that vote?
I mean, it's good that people who've been working with Representative Omar are saying that they want to keep working with her. And look, this is where the rubber hits the road. They're actually doing real work. And so for me as a Republican, and again, I try to put myself in their position every day, especially a woman, a female Republican in Congress, like how, why, what, where, when, like, when you see that a minority in your party effectively held up government for a week until they got their way, which was, I mean, honestly, like, just throwing a tantrum when you had business to do, when you had things to do. And now the speaker, the leader of your party, is capitulating to that little minority instead of you guys. It would bother me. It would drive me absolutely insane. And so I would vote to keep someone like Ilhan Omar on my committee and not go the way of Kevin McCarthy, i.e. the way of the crazies in the Freedom Caucus and this minority that wants to be listened to, even though they do not represent the majority of American people and they don't represent the majority of Republicans.
Yeah, look, he wants to be popular. I mean, he just came through a rough time, so he wants to deliver. Fox News despises Representative Omar for reasons that I think should be obvious if you're familiar with American conservatism. And so they want her to be destroyed. That's what they want at the very least. That's the ground floor.
Yeah.
They'd love more than that. Yeah, and if you haven't been actively following American political news for a number of years, the reason that they would give, if they had to give a reason, and they don't really have to, they can just say Ilhan Omar, ew, we're gonna get rid of her, is that they don't like a tweet that she sent 4 years ago, I think it was, where she criticized the use of money by a lobbying organization. And I understand if you have a problem with the comment, if you think that she should have worded it differently, considering the longstanding anti-Semitic tropes of money and all that. I also think that we live in a country where money in politics is almost never talked about, and when you do, you're attacked. So I would provide a little bit of cover for more criticism of the immense amount of bribery that goes on in politics. But that's what it is supposedly about. Whereas Marjorie Greene was liking tweets calling for people to shoot Nancy Pelosi in the head. If you think that those are the same thing, then you're insane. I'm just gonna say that. I don't think you should be serving on a committee either. But that is the actual argument. I think that that's not really why. I think that she's a member of the squad, she's young, she's a woman of color, she's a Muslim. I mean, pick an identity reason. That's why they despise her and want to see her off the committee.
That's why she should be on the committee, right? The fact that her family are immigrants, right? The fact that she was a refugee. Like, that is why we need this kind of representation of Representative Omar on the Foreign Affairs Committee, right? We need to understand the impact of our foreign policy and the wars that we create and the governments that we support, how those actually impact real people. So again, it's hard to take this out of the dog and pony show of the Republicans and Democrats and the who's got the committee positions. In a democracy that functions, that represents people, hell yeah, Ilhan Omar on this committee. There's no one better suited.
Yeah.
There's no one who understands the impact of US foreign affairs better than someone like her.
Yeah, and thus why they wouldn't want, like, they're not interested in the effect of our policy. They're not interested in the victims of our policy. As she pointed out in the extended comments of her speech, which you can find online, she is the first person ever as a representative born in Africa on a committee that governs the policy towards that continent. That seems like a useful thing. Seems like you'd kind of want that if you saw the people living in that continent to actually be humans. And so I can see why that would be divisive. But anyway, those are the people potentially losing their spots. We'll see with Representative Omar that is coming up next week, and obviously tune in as we give you our analysis as that happens. But let's talk about one other individual. One representative who is very safe on his committees, Kevin McCarthy, not feeling like he's back, like he has to, his arms are bound, he's got to take him off the committees. George Santos, currently serving on 2 committees. And Adam Schiff, who just got taken off of one of his, had some words about that, saying this is a Republican speaker on Kevin McCarthy who is seating a human fraud, allegedly human. George Santos on committees, a serial fabricator about every part of his existence. He's perfectly comfortable with it, which I think is a great point. Now, Kevin McCarthy wants you to believe that he's a responsible overseer of the Republican Party. And if it turns out that George Santos did anything, really serious, and apparently lying about the Holocaust and 9/11, that doesn't rise to the level, then he will take it seriously. He says, if for some way, when we go through ethics and he has broken the law, then we will remove him. The American public in his district voted for him. He has a responsibility to uphold what they voted for, to work and have their voice heard. But at any time, if it rises to a legal level, we will deal with it then. After the ethics committee, which I thoroughly neutered a couple weeks ago, gets done with him, I would fact check him. To be fair, they kind of voted for him. But they also, when they did that, thought that they were voting for someone with a successful Wall Street career who'd gone to this long list of schools, who was a pro volleyball player, who had gone through personal tragedies involving loss of family in the Holocaust and in 9/11, blah, blah, blah. And they probably thought that the person that they were voting for had never stolen dog cancer money. But Kevin McCarthy is forgetting that. And again, when Kevin McCarthy says, I have no power to remove him from Congress, I have been explicitly stating for weeks, I know that, and I'm not asking you to. You clearly have the power and the will to remove people from their committees, though, and you are choosing not to do that because you believe that Ilhan Omar's religious identification or a tweet from 2018 is somehow worse than lying about virtually every stated fact about your life. Francesca, what do you think?
No, I mean, it's just beautiful. Again, like I do think that the fact that they are not taking George Santos off these committees, that they're not really sidelining him at all is honestly, it's a little bit of consistency from the Republicans, which are like, we love liars. Liars are amazing, right? As long as they're lying for the right team, welcome, come one, come all. And I kind of feel like George Santos at this point is an op. Like I feel like he was designed to like just rub Republicans' faces in their own hypocrisy. He was a drag queen, Kitara Revanche. Are you kidding me? And they're still like, listen, once ethics is done with him, what can we say? What can we do? I don't know. Like, it's brilliant. It's brilliant to me. They are forced to embrace this liar who, again, maybe represented all these things that they supposedly hate. I think it makes him very endearing, the fact that he was a drag queen, and very cool. But so yeah, we'll see what happens. It's silly because he could probably be replaced by a Republican anyway in his district. But clearly they're too shook and they need all the help they can get with a slim majority in the House.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I hope that there locally they are recruiting the best possible candidate to take him out when he inevitably runs for re-election, probably under multiple different names for multiple different parties. And also bear in mind, as we go forward, Kevin McCarthy referenced there the ethics committee. If they come back with anything on George Santos, that is an incredibly passive statement, but probably an accurate one, because we have no idea if the ethics committee is looking into him. I know like what you're thinking, well, there's been complaints filed and that seems like the responsible thing to do. Yeah, they have control of it. They just neutered it. Like, how do you know? And let's say it comes out in 3 months that we find out that they hadn't been looking into him. Was Kevin McCarthy gonna blush on air or something? Why would they be looking into him at this point? They have power. They can do whatever they want, and they are. Now, we're gonna take our first break, Francesca. When we come back though, Ted Cruz, massive hypocrite. Very rarely has his hypocrisy been so easy to track in real time, and we'll have an example for you after this. Welcome back to the Young Turks, everyone. I am Iadarola. That is Francesca Fiorentini. Francesca, I heard that before this show you filmed the last, at least for now, Twitchation Room. I just want to say RIP. I know a lot of fun was had, but thankfully,
so much fun.
The Bitchuation Room remains, I hear.
That is correct. Yeah, that's my podcast, The Bitchuation Room. If you like me, yeah, you can listen on all the things. It's on the TYT network, as well as my YouTube and Twitch channel, /Franny Fio, FRANIFIO. But yeah, Twitchuation Room, RIP. There might be more at some point.
Okay.
We'll see.
I'd be down. We'll see. Okay, with that said, let's get into some more fun, starting with this.
This shifts from a political problem to a very serious problem of criminal liability. That was a mistake, but there's no reason to think it was anything but inadvertent.
What are you gonna do with Ted Cruz? I mean, like, we understand that there is going to be hypocrisy from Ted Cruz when it comes to his response to like Donald Trump's many egregious thefts of classified materials and Joe Biden. But when it's Joe Biden and Mike Pence, I mean, it's pretty similar. They were both vice presidents. They both willingly searched for the documents. They both willingly turned them over. To say that one is perfectly fine and the other is criminal neglect is an odd take, especially when Mike Pence has been giving every signal that he wants to run for president again. So it's not even like he's a non-political figure now. In any event, while the hypocrisy is clear, Cruz does have more to say about Joe Biden and the document scandal. Take a look at this.
This shifts from a political problem to a very serious problem of criminal liability and major crimes. And so the FBI needs to search the University of Delaware archives, and they need to search Hunter Biden's home and business addresses.
If you thought that he was going to miss an opportunity to bring up Hunter Biden, then you don't know Ted Cruz or the state of the Republican Party. Francesca, we've been tracking this document scandal now since back when you are on maternity leave. It feels like forever now, and they have never missed an opportunity to show themselves to have no principles whatsoever when it comes to literally any of this.
No, they openly embrace their own hypocrisy because they believe that their voters are too dumb to understand what hypocrisy is. That's it, straight up. They don't bother explaining it because they're like, oh, no, our political philosophy is it's okay when I do it. That's right, say it with me. It's okay when I do it. That's what Republicans, that's what they believe. They don't ever have to be caught out because if you believe that it's okay when you do it, well, then that's it. Then end of story. So I did it for the right reasons. You did it for the wrong reasons. There. Well, how do we know that? Well, it's in my heart. Well, how do you know when Trump was talking to Zelensky there, he wasn't putting pressure on him, to dig up dirt on Joe Biden? Well, I know what's in his heart. So it's what's in your heart. And it's okay when we do it. Anyway, we're the good guys, bad guys, good guys, bad. Like, what are we doing anymore? I just love like how breathless Ted Cruz's hypocrisy is, because Ted Cruz is a smart guy, ostensibly, right? He knows when to get out of a storm, and he's a selfish dude, and he is doing this for the likes. He's doing this for the lulz. He's doing this for the people. He's doing this for the crazy base. He's so performative in how he's doing it, and you can hear him just sort of like choke down. He understands hypocrisy, and he's choking sort of on those words. But he's like, nah, I'm sure Pence had a good reason, and but no, search Hunter Biden's car.
Yeah, I guess he's smart enough to know to say the code word. It's like saying 9/11 this year with Hunter Biden. He's smart in that respect. I guess he became a senator. I guess that's smart. I guess he understood on some level that he had one of the most punchable faces in America, so he caught a rogue possum, strapped it to his chin to cover up as much as possible. He's done some things that are smart, but I don't know. The true test of how smart he is going to be is if he becomes president, because all of this has been in service to that for years now. He's weathered all of the Trump years, hoping that someday he'll become president. I don't think his plan in that respect is as clever as he thinks it is. But in any event, while he believes, as you saw in that video, that they need to search everyone, everywhere, all at once, when it comes to Pence, who did effectively the exact same thing as Joe Biden, not the same thing as Donald Trump, as we'll get into, he has different recommendations. Watch this.
Just as an addendum to this, the news came out today, I'm sure you saw it, that former Vice President Mike Pence, a friend of both of ours, he's found some classified documents, I think at his home in Indiana, not in his office. What do you make of that? Is this different from the Biden story?
Oh, look, the Mike Pence story, it's still early. Mike Pence, and as you noted, he is a good friend. He's a good man. He's explained where these came from. What his office has put out is that in packing up the vice presidential offices, that there were a couple of papers that were classified that were inadvertently put with non-classified materials. That was a mistake, but there's no reason to think it was anything but inadvertent. That is very different from what Joe Biden has done. Joe Biden has given zero explanation as to how these classified documents got there. And in particular, he has given no explanation as to how he has documents from his time in the Senate.
I'm not the biggest fan of Joe Biden. I think that's been fairly clear. Who thinks he intentionally stole them and then stashed them in a box next to the Corvette? Like, who thinks that? Nobody thinks that. Look, could he be more forthcoming? Maybe. I don't know. You guys all think that he doesn't have a functioning brain and he sleeps all day. So why would you expect that he would know where the documents came from? The reason that he probably can't say he knows why the documents are there is because he probably doesn't know why the documents are there. My guess would be that, similar to Mike Pence, they packed up the office and brought the stuff home. The difference, the clear difference, is not between those two. Their cases seem very similar at this point, both in number of documents, relatively small, and the apparent lack of intent to steal it. The willingness to search your residences and offices on your own terms and then give the documents that you find back rather than just burning them or whatever. Whereas with Donald Trump, he was told, we know you have these documents, and month after month after month, 18 of them passed, and he refused to give them back. That is the big difference. We can debate how smart Ted Cruz is, but he is definitely smart enough to know that difference. Again, this is why I think that he will never truly break through. He cannot sell that obviously there is no principle here. In the same way that his body exists day to day without a spine, his arguments exist without a single principle to unify one stance with another. What do you think, Francesca?
Oh, that never mattered. That doesn't matter. He's not gonna be president because not even Republicans like him, right? He's just a tryhard, and they can see that even when he does performative stuff like this. But again, I know what's in his heart. He's a good man. He's a friend. I'm gonna openly say he's my friend. And so because he's my friend, you should trust him because he's my friend, Fox News. And that's a perfect argument. It's just amazing. It is completely illogical. My guess is we're gonna have classified documents found for a very long time. I think everyone, Obama's gonna have some. Obama's gonna have some. George Bush gonna be like, oh, these, okay. You were talking about, there's gonna be so many classified. Everyone's gonna get on it, and just gonna be an endless, when we're sort of putting our hands on top of you. Anyway, it's a schoolyard thing. It's crazy. But I'm tired of this story for sure. And yes, what actually matters is that Trump tried to conceal it, and that Trump definitely, he was using them. It's not like Biden deliberately planted or kept classified documents for the instance when he became president. Then I will go back to when I was elected, to the Senate in 1918 and use them to my advantage. All that information's old at this point. No, Trump is at least I was, selling it to the highest bidder. Oops.
100%. Yeah, and so everyone watching at home, I just want you to at least think about, you don't necessarily have to state it or post it or whatever. What is your actual standard? Okay, what do you want to happen if this law was violated? First of all, do you think that intent matters? I'm generally of the opinion that I don't see why it matters so much, but you can defer on that. And then what do you think should be done if they violated the law? I mean, all three of these men violated the law. Is it too harsh to say ban them all from running for office again? Would that not at least send a signal to current officials and future officials to not violate the law, either through intent or through gross irresponsibility? Am I being naive and ridiculous because I believe we should have a standard that we apply in all cases, regardless of whether the person has the same mascot on their jacket as we do? I don't know. Apparently I'm crazy based on my experience watching cable news over the past few weeks. That said, I want to close with one just little added wrinkle of irony to this. And it's that like before it was revealed that he had also taken classified documents, here is what Mike Pence was saying.
Did you take any classified documents with you from the White House?
I did not.
Do you see any reason for anyone to take classified documents with them leaving the White House?
Well, there'd be no reason to have classified documents, particularly if they were in an unprotected area.
So like I would give Mike Pence at least the credit that he apparently independently decided to have his team search for these documents. And when he found them, he didn't shred them, he sent them in. So that's good. Just do that before you start talking about how you're so superior and pure compared to these other people. You can't think of a single reason. How about neglect? Because that's your argument right now. And I think there is a case to be made that that's an okay one, maybe. But you were not willing to offer that up when it was Joe Biden that was the most recent person in the news talking about this. And isn't that convenient? Anyway, Francesca, I have heard you state that you are tired of that story. So we're gonna move on until the Obama documents come out, or they dig up that casket on the Trump golf course and find more documents. So why don't we move on to other news that will probably infuriate you even more. Steve Bannon is weighing in on the political aspirations and ambitions of Marjorie Greene, and they go about as high as you can imagine. He is saying that she wants to be VP. And first of all, I would like to congratulate Steve Bannon on being on the cutting edge of political discourse. Everybody was already talking about this like 3 months ago. Anyway, but he has actually spoken with her, which is a benefit to him? Doesn't seem like one, but he does have inside information. And so here is why he feels so confident that she wants to be Trump's VP candidate. He says, this is no shrinking violet. She's ambitious. She's not shy about that, nor should she be. She's both strategic and disciplined. And I sort of get what he means with that last part. It seems weird to apply as lofty an adjective as strategic to the mind of Marjorie Greene, but anyway, he says she sees herself on the short list for Trump's VP. Paraphrasing Cokie Roberts, when MTG looks in the mirror, she sees a potential president smiling back. That's my favorite part of this, because he is explicitly talking about her being VP there. And I guess maybe he means someday she would run for president too. And why not? That seems like hell, so I'm sure we'll experience it together. But it sounds like he's saying she wants to be Trump's VP and just wait in the wings until he inevitably keels over. That's what it feels like to me, Francesca. That said, they have a second source, not just Bannon, saying that Greene, her whole vision is to be vice president. The source, who has ties to Trump, spoke on condition of anonymity, but also believes that Greene would be on Trump's shortlist. And look, this is considered like a big divisive rumor in today's news cycle. I just take this as a given. Like, yeah, she's almost certainly on the short list. I am starting to think maybe Kari Lake could edge her out. Maybe Tulsi Gabbard. I don't know for sure. What do you think?
Oh God, you just planting that. I had to like swallow a little bit of vom right there. Thinking of Tulsi Gabbard as a running mate. Yeah, of course. Of course, Marjorie wants to be the running mate, and it makes sense. We can't have nice things in this country, so we will, if I were to call it, Trump gets reelected, Trump keels over, which is good. That feels good. then Marjorie becomes president. That feels bad. And there you have it. And then we are basically in a don't look up situation with Meryl Streep, except we've got Marjorie Greene. Anyway, yeah, no, it's clear that here's what I will say. What I like about Trump is that he also loves being a wet blanket on people's dreams. Like he hates the idea that other people have ambitions other than himself, right? Or that their ambitions are not just to prop him up and his greatness. She's done a good job, right? She was, not successfully, but she was like lobbying her fellow congresspeople on the floor when they were trying to vote for McCarthy, and she had Donald on the phone, right? Like DJT was like, here, talk to him, he's begging us. She was doing that, she's been calling Boebert out for her lack of like loyalty. She's been doing all the things, but also she's a little, she's trying to be her own thing. And Trump doesn't like someone who's trying to be their own thing. He's going to have to play kind of if she's the nominee, a second fiddle, like a passing the torch, passing the baton situation. And I don't think he likes that. Remember when Chris Christie kind of stepped out a little bit too much? Remember when even Rudy Giuliani stepped out a little too much, and then he got beaten to submission, and he came back and he was fine. He was sort of like came back as a little puppy lapdog and like, no, you don't have to even pay me. I will eat off the ground. I'll
rely on Cameo. Yes, I do recall that. He probably made a few royalties off of the Borat movie. I do agree that Marjorie Greene has certain pros, I think, from his point of view, that she is incurious and conspiratorial and will relentlessly attack people for incredibly personal things. I think you'll like all of that, but I agree that she might be too ambitious for him. It is also, isn't it weird that I agree with you when you laid out the case that he doesn't like other people around him to have ambition. I think most people would agree with that. Isn't it weird that his claim to fame before the presidency was that he hosted a show where he'd be choosing his apprentice, and he clearly doesn't want anyone else to succeed except for him, which is like the one thing you don't want in a mentor. Anyway, I think that Kari Lake might have a leg up in that respect, that I think she would be more deferential to Trump. I think that Marjorie Greene 2 years ago would be that, but I think that she's getting a little bit big for her britches from the point of view of a Donald Trump, someone as sensitive and thin-skinned as him. Anyway, do we have the poll? I don't know if we actually, do we? No, okay, we don't. We cannot poll you about this, so I post on Twitch or on YouTube or something. Anyway, I wanna get to one other aspect of this. While many people have been being thrown off of committees in the House recently, Marjorie Greene is getting another subcommittee, and it's on something that she has done a lot of independent research on forums on the dark web, and she has spoken a lot about. It's about COVID and the government response to COVID. To remind you of her approach to the pandemic, this is a video that was taken in the middle of 2021 when she was being asked about people dying from COVID. Take a look at this.
Do you feel any responsibility for keeping people in Georgia safe? There are children, skinny people who have died of the coronavirus. Do you feel any responsibility?
Tia, you crack me up. You know what? I think people's responsibility is their own.
I get that on a panel like today, it's me and it's Francesca and she's a comedian, we're supposed to have fun and everything. I cannot tell you how much I despise that woman and everything that she stands for. That was one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. And I've done countless thousands of hours of this sort of broadcasting. She was asked about her own constituents in her state dying of COVID in June of 2021. And she bust out laughing like she had just heard a really racist joke. She thought it was hilarious that people were dying, and a lot of people were dying. Of course, lots of people have died since then, but she's gonna be on the committee to investigate COVID, Francesca. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, no, when I saw that clip, the first word that came to my mind was vile. And I think that's the reaction that she causes in me. I mean, we've been covering COVID obviously since it began, and we're going on 3 years now. We're gonna hit the 3-year mark. Shy of 1 million people dying in this country. And this is someone who she's laughing at her own joke about it. And now she's gonna, everything that she's been saying, right? All the things she's been saying about Fauci, it's only going to get worse. And she's gonna be on the political side, right? So random investigations, pulling him in front of, the committee, interrogating him. But what happens to Anthony Fauci in his life, right? How many more bodyguards is he gonna need to get? How many more death threats are going to be issued on his life? And that's just one guy in all of the many people that they're taking aim at. And let's just remember, this is a Congress that refuses to approve any more funding, not just for future pandemics, but the current COVID-19 vaccine and any kind of preparedness for its mutations. Like, there is no more money, to the point where Joe Biden, the president, is basically pulling the plug, and he's about to declare COVID-19 not an emergency anymore. That's gonna end very, very soon. And we're gonna move to these, annual flu shot like things, which there's no scientific evidence that those kinds of shots once a year will actually adequately prevent you from getting sick. And so they already won. And it's not enough, because it's just not memeable enough for MTG.
Yeah, you know what, to that end, as we go to our break, I'm gonna remind you of a few of these memeable moments of Marjorie Greene when it came to COVID. We probably covered virtually every bit of this along the way, but it's very easy to forget how bad things have been. Here are a few things that she has said about COVID over time. She said that young boys shouldn't wear masks because they're emasculating. I don't know if she thinks masculating, that's the same thing. It's not, Marge, read a book. She said that a vaccine passport would be Biden's mark of the beast. She said it's fascism or communism, whatever you want to call it, but it's coming from private companies, so I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism, which is just about the dumbest term I've ever heard. And by the way, maybe it's fascism, maybe it's communism, but it's probably just one of those two things. I feel like they're different. Anyway, she said that having to wear a mask in Congress shows that Pelosi is mentally ill. She also said that having to prove that you were vaccinated is exactly the same type of abuse Jews experience being put on trains and taken to gas chambers in Nazi Germany. But again, Ilhan Omar's an anti-Semite. 3 weeks later, she said that if vaccines were provided door to door, it would be by medical brown shirts. In June of 2021, when she wasn't laughing about kids in Georgia dying of COVID, she called it a manufactured plague caused by a Chinese-made virus. In July of 2021, she said that COVID variants, including Delta, no one cares. Hundreds of thousands of families that lost people to those variants probably cared. Anyway, she joked about killing someone that would come to her door to provide vaccination. That was funny. She also said when in August of 2021 that COVID is spreading, but we're human. We can't live forever. We're gonna catch all kinds of diseases and illnesses and other viruses, which is just about as fatalistic a statement as I've ever heard from a representative of government, particularly one who's gonna be in charge of the government's oversight of COVID. But also, you'll notice that if something bad medically happens, what are you gonna do? Life is short. They don't apply that to like side effects of the vaccine, only the virus itself. Weird how that works out. Anyway, that's Marjorie Greene coming to a COVID panel near you. With that said, we're gonna take a short break. When we come back, Ticketmaster was in the spotlight on Capitol Hill today, and we'll give you all the updates after this. Back everyone to what remains of the first hour of the Young Turks. Thank you for joining us. Cenk and Anna are out, although Cenk will be back tomorrow. I'm leading the first hour, and then Francesca is gonna be taking the reins for the second hour. I'm already excited, Francesca.
Me too.
Okay, we'll see together. Anyway, with that said, let's talk about one more thing. Whenever you're ready, we can jump into this.
Mr. Berchtold, I wanna congratulate and thank you for an absolutely stunning achievement. You have brought together Republicans and Democrats in an absolutely unified cause. Ticketmaster had the temerity to imply that the debacle involved in pre-ticket sales was Taylor Swift's fault because she was failing to do too many concerts? And may I suggest respectfully that Ticketmaster ought to look in the mirror and say, I'm the problem. It's me.
I've been told from people who would know that that is a lyric from a Taylor Swift song. And please, to whoever is an aide to Senator Blumenthal, stop giving them lyrics to read during congressional testimony. Anyway, look, the content is important. Ticketmaster has rightly been under fire for the past few months for their effective monopoly that has ruined the regular ticket buying experience for lots of people with needless costs and markups, as well as bringing to a crashing halt entire tours like for Taylor Swift. And so they were brought in to talk to the Senate, and there's gonna be some tough questions, and we will get to that and the facts of this. But first, here are more elderly people referencing Taylor Swift.
I believe in capitalism, and to have a strong capitalist system, you have to have competition. You can't have too much consolidation, something that unfortunately for this country, as a ode to Taylor Swift, I will say, we know all too well.
Really looking forward to my ongoing service on the antitrust subcommittee. Along with Senator Klobuchar as chair. To be honest, I had hoped as of a few months ago to get the gavel back, but once again, she's chair captain and I'm on the bleachers. So
those representing the dominant player in the market would contend that their growth has allowed them to innovate and make advances that greatly benefit consumers. A few million Taylor Swift fans would respond, "This is why we can't have nice things."
A lot of people seem to think that's somehow a solution. I think it's a nightmare dressed like a daydream.
Oh my God, it's a room full of Cenk Uygurs. Anyway, man, they just want any opportunity to have a little bit of fun. I do want to say about Senator Klobuchar, I disagree with her on a lot, and I would never want to be within stapler throwing distance of her. But she's pretty good with the mom jokes. You can see like she kind of like leans forward, like she's so excited that she's gonna tell the joke, and the delivery was better than all the rest of them. But anyway, we have a professional comedian on the panel today. Francesca,
Sean,
how do you rate them?
Oh, I think Klobuchar for sure. I agree with you. She has terrible jokes, but she knows they're terrible, so she's about to do them. But I do think the best delivery, and I can't remember, but whoever said, I'm on the bleachers, like some whatever. I don't know the lyric clearly. Mike Lee, I think because it's off the cuff, it's smooth. They're cheer captain and I'm on the bleachers. Like that was just like just delivery wise, you just sort of snuck it in there.
Yeah.
John, look what you made me do,
Exactly, yeah. Well, look, and also it's not like a big cheering environment, so it's hard for him to know like if the joke actually landed or if it bombed. Should he just shake it off? I don't know. Anyway, I'm as cringy as them. And that's the most recent song of hers I can reference. Anyway, look, jokes aside, this is incredibly serious. Thankfully, people like Taylor Swift and some other artists have been talking about this for some time. There's been a lot of great journalism about the Ticketmaster monopoly. There was a really great episode of John Oliver a year or two ago about this whole thing. It needs to change, and I want to give you some of the facts about this. Ticketmaster currently controls over 70% of the market for ticketing and live events. Far and away the market leader. It's not technically a monopoly. I guess there are other people technically that have a very minority share that do sell tickets, but because of its market share, it gives it a dominant position, which raises concerns that it may abuse its market power. I love the use of the word may there. Anyway, it's held more than an 80% share of major concert primary ticketing since 1995. And by the way, when you throw around numbers like 70 or 80%, you think, okay, so that's 7/10. Well, at least 1/3 of the tickets. No, but like they have a monopoly over many hundreds of the most important venues. It's not like they get 70% of the shows at each place. They get all of the shows at a bunch of different places. And so if you want to come and do major shows, then you kind of have to go with them. So again, the technicalities of whether it's a monopoly or not, we can have that debate. But effectively, it is able to wield that sort of clout as of right now. And so, like, if you're watching this and if you've tried to buy tickets through Ticketmaster, you already know the effect of this. You know about how much more expensive these things are, the major fees that in some cases can be something like 80+% of the price of the ticket being added on top of it. And that's from the consumer's point of view. Of course, the actual artists have a long list of complaints about having to deal with this sort of monopoly in that they have to give very large portions of what they are producing. They're the reason people are going there, but Ticketmaster gets to take a very large percentage of that. And so I certainly understand the frustration that's been brewing, Francesca, and I really hope that they use this opportunity to do something about it.
I mean, the John Oliver segment you're referencing was about Bad Bunny tickets, which honestly I'm much more interested in personally, which at the time were like $400 to $600 a pop. But we can think it's cringe, but it is kind of great that someone like Taylor Swift has put this Live Nation Ticketmaster monopoly on notice, and we are all talking about it. And I think I have a lot of thoughts about this, but if we could only do this for other industries that matter far more than whether we get affordable tickets, but let's just take it as that. Look, you have an incredible, you have a company that specializes in being the middleman, right? They're only the middleman, and you have to deal with them. And they're putting the burden on the venue, on the actual physical venue, on the artist, and on the consumer. And none of those three entities are happy, right? They often will own the venue, so if nothing else, they're like happy with that. But in terms of like smaller venues, they get completely iced out if they're not also part of the Live Nation Ticketmaster, behemoth. And why? Or behemoth, I don't know how we pronounce this, but the reason is because let's say like, I filling stadiums, obviously, if I go and I play a Ticketmaster or a Live Nation venue in Chicago, I cannot legally, whatever I signed to play that venue, I cannot play in the Chicago area for 6 months or to a year at another smaller venue or a different venue that isn't a Live Nation venue. It's insane. So it hurts the artists and it hurts other small venues. That John and I just did a show at a venue in San Francisco for my podcast, The Bitchuation Room, that is now closing. Now, of course, this is COVID times, it's really, really hard. But also if smaller venues were able to book medium-sized acts, they could stay alive, but those medium-sized acts are being gobbled up by this whole Ticketmaster, sort of web, right? So it's terrible, and it kind of reminds me of, pay discrepancy in Hollywood. You're like, all right, well, Angelina Jolie's still making millions and millions of dollars. Who cares if Ryan Gosling's getting more than her? It's like, wait, but it does matter, Taylor Swift and Bad Bunny, they have plenty of money. It's not a big deal. But in the case of, for example, Pearl Jam, they're trying to which basically tried to make tickets more affordable for consumers. Ticketmaster is making that impossible for them. So it's not that these artists can't afford it. It's that when they're trying to get rid of the middleman between them and their, and their fans, Ticketmaster comes in and is like, no. There's going to be millions and millions of dollars in between, and no one's going to be happy.
Sure, I agree, and I'm primarily also interested more on the consumer side. But while these people are fabulously wealthy, and I don't generally spare a ton of my empathy for people who are going to be just fine either way, at least they're rich because people desperately want to see them. Like, I don't necessarily understand why you'd pay $600 to see Taylor Swift, but a lot of people want to do that. That is. She's making that. So I feel like she should benefit from it more than some corporate exec who's in a different state. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see what comes out of this. If more comes from these hearings, we'll of course have it for you. For now, though, that is the end of the first hour. When we come back, Francesca Fiorentini will be taking over, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a few.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.